Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This year, as part of our coverage of ATX Television Festival Season 8, I was lucky enough to sit down and chat with Florida Girls creator Laura Chinn. It premieres July 10th on the Pop Network. You know, that place where Schitt's Creek comes from. I got to see screeners before the interview, and Florida Girls is a real treat. So I was really looking forward to chatting with Laura about it. Hope you enjoy. So this is Les from the TV Dudes, and I'm lucky enough today to sit down and chat with Laura Chinn, who is the writer and creator of Florida Girls.
Yes.
Is it The Florida Girls?
It's Florida Girls.
Florida Girls.
Yeah.
So growing up, my family went to Destin, Florida every year.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been to Clearwater, and we've canoed down Coldwater Creek or whatever was. Anyway, that area of Florida, is always where we vacation.
Yep.
And so when I saw the first episode open with that shot of like welcome to Clearwater, I was like, I think I know about where we are. Can you talk a bit about why this show, where the idea came from for you?
Yeah.
What you find wonderful to mine out of these stories?
Yeah. I grew up in Clearwater. I lived there from like age 9 to 20. And I grew up watching like, you know, Friends and like a lot of shows about like 20-somethings in like big cities trying to figure out how to become an adult. And I loved those shows, but I was always like wishing there was a show that was more geared towards like the problems that I was facing and my friends. And we all kind of dropped out of high school and we were like, do we get GEDs? What kind of trade school do we go to? Like it was a very different kind of world and mentality, and I always wanted to tell those kinds of stories. So that's kind of where the idea came from, and I liked the idea of it having like, even though it's not like aspirational in the sense that they're all billionaires, like it's aspirational in the sense that they're trying to take these little steps to better their lives in any way they can.
When it came time to actually break it into an ensemble of characters, can you talk a bit about the process where you went about filling in the characters? That you don't just want them to be the easy tropes if you polled people about Florida, you know.
Right.
So how did you shore up and strengthen the ensemble you wanted with the characters?
I tried to think of like if all 4 of them were one person, they might be like a successful like contributing member of society. But because they're broken into these different, so there's like one girl is like the ego of the group, and one girl is like the courage and the bravery and like the leader of the group, and one girl is like the scrappy one who gets the job done, and then one girl is like the hopeful, like wanting to better herself. And so they all have these attributes that if you put them together, they maybe could be like president of the United States, but because they're separate, they're kind of just lost and floundering.
Do these, I know often in my own writing, I'll hew close to a story from my life, but I'll have somebody do a worse decision than we really did, or say that thing that sounds great, but oh my God, you shouldn't say.
Right.
But I end up then having to explain to my friends that like, no, it's not you. It's not you.
Yes.
It's just similar to. Did you run into that at all with this? Did you have any stories where you wrote it down and went, oh my God, someone is going to read that and I'm going to have to explain to my mom?
No. My parents, I grew up with my dad not in the household, so my dad was unaware of what we were doing, obviously. And then my mom was very like, let us do whatever we wanted. And my friends are very excited about the show. And because no character is based on like any one person, you know? It's not like, oh, that's obviously so-and-so. Like every character is such a combination of different people I've met throughout my life. And you know, so it's not like I'm like, you know, biting my nails like, oh, I hope nobody gets offended, because it's just like the world is the same and some of the like situations we were in were the same, but I never intended to be like poking fun at any of the girls or like poking fun of poor people, or like, because I grew up without money, like I like empathize and like so wanted it to be like a love letter as much as it is like a comedy, I guess, in the way that like The Office is like a love letter to office workers, even though they are kind of taking the piss out of them, so it's somewhere in the middle. But yeah, no, that's never really concerned me.
When it came to writing the jokes of the show, the humor of the show, the whole kind of setup of the world is just generally funny.
Thank you.
But when it comes to writing your scripts and writing jokes, and
Do you ever find yourself reading back over a scene and thinking, oh, that just plays flat, somebody's got to say a one-liner there, or vice versa?
Of course, yeah, always. I mean, that's every show I've ever written for. It's such a, like, endlessly long process, and what's first starting out on the page then gets changed a million times after table reads and after notes from networks or studios, and then even when we're on set, though, we're like, something that was so fun at the table isn't like bringing everyone joy here on set, so we have to figure out a new way around it. And the girls that portray the girls, like, they're all in their own right, like, such talented performers, and they perform live every week in LA, and they're so additive to the characters in the comedy, and a lot of the stuff comes from, like, ideas they have, and it was a very much, like, free to collaborate environment.
Is there an example of it? Have you found yourself surprised, rather, by the character that ended up in front of camera because of collaboration and the actor and the people versus the thing you wrote?
All of them. Like, truly, even down to, like, the side characters. Like, the guest stars would come in and somebody would, like, improvise a line that we were like, oh my god, that's the character, that's this guy, he's, like, whatever attribute, you know, like, and the girls especially, when they auditioned, it was like I learned about the characters just from their audition tapes, because they brought in such a, like, specific kind of comedy and point of view, especially, I mean, all of them, like, the main girls especially, though, because it was like, I had an idea what was in my head, I knew what I kind of wanted, but then these actresses came in and, like, took such big swings that made me go, oh, that's actually who that character is, which was so rewarding because I get to take credit for their genius.
Rather than being in a writer's room or just writing a spec, or can you talk a bit about what the process was like to develop the show and then take it to this point? Yeah,
it was non-traditional for sure. So I wrote a script and I really wanted to act in it, but I had been predominantly writing for the past 6 years, and like occasional guest stars on TV or whatever, but I didn't feel like it was going to be like an obvious, like, of course you can be a series regular of this show, but I really felt like it was like my story and I really wanted to be a part of it in that way. So we found a company called Jax Media, which does like Broad City and Younger and endless comedies, and what they did for another one of their shows called Search Party that's on TBS. Yeah. So they did this for Search Party where they privately financed the pilot, and then they shot the pilot exactly how they wanted to shoot it, and then they took it to TBS, and TBS bought it, and it became a series, and that pilot aired. So the owner of Jax is from Florida, so he read this script and he was like, oh my god, yeah. So it was very kismet, and they were my dream company, that I was like nervous to even send them the pilot, and the fact they wanted to make it was like, it was huge. So we privately financed a pilot. They privately financed a pilot, and we made it in LA, shooting LA for Florida. And then we ended up selling that to Pop, and then we reshot the pilot in Savannah.
That's great.
Yeah.
In reshooting the pilot, what kind of things did you change?
Not a lot. Like, really not a lot. We stuck to like the main pilot story a ton. We changed the look of it a little bit. Like, we were shooting it, the pilot presentation, we were thinking a little bit more like darker and like more like It's Always Sunny and gritty. But then I think because of some of the subject matter, we were like, it's just feeling a little too dark. So then we added just a little bit more like color and just like saturation and Florida and heat to it. That was like our main thing.
I feel like that comes off in the color palette and the visuals.
Good, yeah. Our director was amazing, and she like had a vision because she spent her summers in Florida and the Keys, and she was like, I have a vision for this. So it like pops a little more, and I think it makes it feel a little more comedic. And it also, like, by the time we shot the pilot again, it was a year later, so we were so close as a cast, and like it came through so much more instantly. Like, oh, this is a friend group that's been a friend group for a long time.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering. And sometimes you see a pilot that you know was made a year prior to the rest of the show,
right?
And then and you don't think about it at the time, and years later you go back to rewatch it. And you're like, I'm going to rewatch such and such. You watch episode 1, and then there's this crazy, jarring transition to episode 2, where everybody ages up a year, and one best friend changes, and nobody says anything.
Yeah, we did end up having to recast one of the main roles from the presentation to the pilot, and it was just like the need to have like a certain kind of energy that was like, and we needed a new actor to do it because it was like the character's so specific that we needed this like very specific kind of energy, and so we ended up recasting, and so there is a new friend in the other pilot.
In terms of getting to, like you said, put your own story up, has there been a most surprising or most satisfying moment for you, where you walked away from a day and went, that's it, that's the secret dream, I've done it?
Every day, like, it truly has been since I saw 30 Rock, and I was like, wait, you can do, like, it was like my brain going, like, you can do that, and like being obsessed with Tina Fey and watching her, and like Mindy Kaling and these women who have like written and then established themselves as actors. It's been such a dream, and so the whole process has been like weirdly like non-toxic and loving, and like sure, like long hours and challenging and hard work, but it's really been like every day I'm like, thank you, can I please keep doing this? Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
In terms of favorite things that story engine and things to do later in the show, I'm sure you still have stories in your back pocket that you haven't gotten told.
Many, yeah.
Without ruining season 1 for me, is there anything in particular that you were most looking forward to post-pilot, after in that year of shopping it around, where oh, there's this sweet thing in episode 4 though, guys?
Well, we do episode 3 I really love because it's based on this neighborhood barbecue called Chunky Sunday that happened in my neighborhood growing up, and Chunky Sunday is so specific and wonderful that I was like, every time I talk about Chunky Sunday, people are like, what is it? Yeah, and it's just like girls like twerking in the middle of the daytime at a park, like it's just wonderful. So we executed that, and it came together in such a way that it felt very like authentic, and like the extras we had that day were amazing. Sunday. Yeah, it was like, and we actually hired like a real barbecue guy from the town to come and make barbecue for the whole crew and cast, and that was like really special. It felt really close to like life. But there's a few episodes like that where I'm like, this is my childhood, and I'm reliving it, and it's wonderful.
I can't imagine. There's a handful of shows that are based so closely on a creator's life that like it just has to be weird to watch the Goldbergs for Adam Goldberg.
Yeah.
Or honestly, any Wes Anderson movie has to be weird for Wes.
Sure.
Like, Angelica, you're just playing your mom.
Yeah.
Was there an oddest moment, like a strangest, like, oh, that's a little vulnerable?
Oh gosh. There was a scene like episode 10 in the finale. I'm like having a very emotional about my GED. The stakes are always very low, but we treat them very high. I'm having a very emotional moment about my GED, and with another cast member, and we're in this sort of like heated fight in the finale, and I started crying while we were filming, and I was like, this is a comedy. I had to like walk away and collect myself and come back and like do the scene a little bit less emotional, but I truly was like, I have to better my life, and I just started crying. I was like, okay. The other actress was like,
May not have sold the joke there.
Yeah, she's such a good actress that she like pulled me into her vortex. But it was great.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for taking out time to chat with me about it.
Thank you.
I was really glad to get the interview and to get the screeners and check it out.
Yes, please tell your friends and get Pop. The Schitt's Creek Network. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I was like, why do I know Pop?
I know.
That's right.
I know. Pop's getting the word out. They're getting the word out.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Permanent Record Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, please go to patreon.com/TVDudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter @TVDudes, and help us out on iTunes by giving us a 5-star rating and writing a review. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and permanentrcrd.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.